Ed, can we have a roll call? You want to call our names off? I don't know if you got up the devices there or.
I can.
Here she goes. Well, Diane's about to do it.
I've got the roster if you'd like me to go ahead and do it. For the sake of time and expediency.
Sure, go for it.
Mr. Kroon.
Present.
Mr. Pulowski.
Here.
Commissioner Lashetke.
Here.
Commissioner Mackey. Not yet. Commissioner McLeod.
Here.
Commissioner Mailer.
Here.
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
Commissioner Ward, who I saw.
Commissioner Ward, you are muted.
He was lip syncing.
Aye.
Excellent. And Commissioner Wong. Okay, so you've got 7 of 9, which is a quorum. Mr. Chair.
Very good. Can we do the same, Steve, with who you see present, so we don't have people stepping over each other? For those you don't know, maybe have them introduce themselves.
Okay, I don't think I understood the question, but I think the answer is going to be yes.
For the roll call for the rest of the folks joining us.
I think you just need to read down the list of who's in the meeting, who's not in a commissioner.
Okay,
Correct.
I will do that. For those that I see, if you stand by, let me go ahead and just open up the participants list here so I don't have to pretend I don't know who's here. Well, I am here, Steve Rebuffo, Port Director. Mr. Jaeger is here. He is the Director of Security and Business Development for the Port. Cheryl Beckham, the Finance and Administration Manager, is here. Sharon Walsh, the Port of Alaska Modernization Program Director, is here. And Shannon Martindale, who is the Operations and Maintenance Superintendent, is also present. Not here yet because I don't see Mr. Blaine, Roy Blaine, the Engineering Services Chief, is not here yet. And Diane, are you on?
I am, sir.
Diane is here.
Okay. So Mr. Rotkus, is he here?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, thank you. Then all we're missing is Mr. Blaine, so we'll play catch up with him.
Okay, very good. Hopefully, not too many folks are missing out that wanted to join us that got the 12:30, but maybe they'll join us then. Moving along, Paul, would you like to give us a safety minute, please?
Yes, sir, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. As we get through this freeze-thaw cycle and as we head home from work, those shadows that are cast on the road that was wet now becomes ice. It's real easy to come around a corner and it's shaded, and that water is, like I said, is now ice. So use some good caution there. And as well, I'm not sure if anybody has seen the weather warning, but snow tonight accumulation 2 to 4 inches, and tomorrow 1 to 2 inches, and upper hillside tonight 4 to 7 inches. So I hate to drop that snow bomb on us once again, but just a little heads up for everyone.
Very good. Thank you, Paul. I guess we'll take what we get. Moving along, I'll go to the approval of the agenda. I would like to add, maybe it's under your reports, but under the old business, an update on the Marad lawsuit, and then some comments on the document update from some of the emails.
Hey, Brad, why don't I add that to my Port Director comments?
That would be great.
Okay.
Okay. So looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved, Dave's.
Second, Ron.
Seconded by Ron. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any Any opposed? Okay, moving along. Approval of the February 3rd, 2021 meeting minutes. Any discussions there or a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Seconded by Simon. Motion by Ron.
One quick discussion item, Mr. Chair, if you would. In the minutes, it states that the commissioner asked a question which was handled by Sharon, but it doesn't say what the answer was. A couple different times.
Yeah, I saw that too. We kind of need a something to remember by, I think. I don't know if the onus is on us to get in there and read all, read further, but I think it would be better for us to get the information as a reminder.
All right, why don't you tell me, since I'm the guy that does the transcriptions from the recording, and we can do it one of two ways. I can either just say, go to the recording and listen to it for yourself, or I can try and write, once upon a time, there was 3 bears, and this guy said this, and this guy said this, and this guy said this. So
Well, I think we can go somewhere in between, just a little more information about our discussion points, just for reminders of us, because.
So why don't you point out where I need to go back and re-look at the transcript so that I can embellish.
Well, it's about having a record to me, Steve. Let me see, because, okay, that explains quite a bit then that you're doing this.
Yeah, well, I know.
Don't you have enough to do?
Well, I keep telling the staff that if there's anybody that's got the most amount of free time, it's probably me.
Okay, let's see.
But my approach to this has been, since we are now recording all the meetings, the minutes are sort of a general description of that which happened. If you want the detail, go to the recordings, so that these don't have to be 70 pages long like the transcripts are.
Yeah, I don't think anyone wants a full transcript.
All right, so I guess, Steve, Port Director's closing comments. Commissioner Ward asked for clarification on the future of POL2, and Mrs. Walsh and Mr. Bowl Jacobs offered a response. But that's all it says. It doesn't say what the response was. So, I mean, even a encapsulated synopsis doesn't have to be more than a sentence. But just so we know, yeah.
Nope. We will go back. We will go back, and I will amend that.
I appreciate that. And there was one where Captain Mailer asked about preparations, and it just says it was handled. Again, about whether or not plans were being made to build a sinking fund. Yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, so moving forward, I don't think we have to go backwards on this one, but moving forward, we can go back and listen if we need to. We can just get a little more insight on what was discussed. The direction would be helpful, so we know whether we want to dig into the full transcript or not.
Okay, so I will do my best to add a little bit more detail. It's gonna be a hit and miss kind of plan, because what makes sense to me may not make sense to you guys.
Understood.
Yeah.
So do we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes? Did we already go through that?
You're muted.
So moved.
Aves makes a motion to move to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Third.
Anyone oppose? We'll go that way. Hearing no opposing, we'll call it as approved.
And what I will do is I will fill in those gaps as identified and then resend a copy of the minutes to everybody. You guys can, take a look at it and let me know if it's satisfactory or not, or if you still would like more, in which case this will be an iterative process until you're satisfied.
So approved with the additions from the board director. Okay. Port director's comments.
Okay, so I think the first thing I would like to do is offer another safety moment from a maritime perspective. So I'm gonna take the screen. So have you all seen? Can you all see my screen?
We can.
Well, this happened yesterday on the Suez Canal in a sandstorm. Our good friends at Evergreen with a 20,000 TEU container ship got sideways and grounded and blocked the canal. And I don't know if it's open yet or not. I don't know who's heard about this, but it's pretty fascinating set of circumstances. I don't think I've ever heard of something like this happening in the past. I was gonna defer to Simon to see if in his history managing the fleet for BP, if you've ever heard of anything like this happening. But I thought I would share, and I'll keep an eye on this. I'm curious to find out what lessons learned come out of it. But I thought it a very interesting story that popped up this morning.
This is Simon Leshetsky. Yeah, I've heard about this, and I've actually been stuck in the Suez Canal when a ship ahead ran aground. It's kind of interesting. I'm actually very surprised that it's taken that long to get it unfloat or to get it freed up. I think it's 24, maybe 48 hours now, and when I looked this morning, it was still partially blocked.
Yeah. And pretty well damaged, as I understand it, too. Well, I thought I would. I just thought I would share a little about that falls into the boy, you think you have problems category, and for what that's worth. All right. That aside, a couple of items, and I'll attack the third one first. Brad, when you ask about the Marriott lawsuit, are you asking me if I know anything any different than what was in the email that I sent out to you all?
Yeah, just wonder if there's any updates.
No, and there will not be until after July the 2nd, when those reports are due to the judge from both sides for both sides of the argument. They were given until July the 2nd to turn in those reports. The judge will take them and he'll read them, obviously. And then in lieu of closing arguments, I believe he's going to have a Q&A session with both sides, and basically quiz them on those reports that they submitted in order to close whatever gaps he might still have in the information he thinks he needs to make a decision. And once he's done with that, and I don't know how long after July the 2nd this is going to take place, nor do I know how long after that event takes place he's going to want to take before he renders a verdict. But my understanding is this is his last case before he retires. So somewhere in the man's brain is a deadline, and he's not sharing it with anybody. But I suspect, this is going to drag out this way at least through the fall, sometime in the fall. It would be nice if it was over with by the time we hit the end of the year. But when I asked the folks up on the municipal manager's office, they don't have a clue either. All they know is there's a July 2nd deadline to get these reports into him. And that's what everybody's marching towards right now. So if anything new pops up between now and the next time we meet, or in time for the next time we meet, we will certainly share that with you all. Okay, item 2 for me. I got some information this morning from Sharon and Cheryl that I'll steal a little bit of their thunder because they have a lot of other things they want to discuss with you guys, but I wanted to give you kind of an update on where we stand with the discussions with FEMA and money reimbursements as they pertain to the earthquake damage that we received down here at the port. I think I'm happy to say, and happy to say on behalf of Sharon and Cheryl, who have been carrying the water on this for a surprisingly long time, that we're almost at the end. There are a few items left as yet, either unaddressed because of time or the paperwork making its way through the approval process before we can call this thing done. We're happy to say. All told, the damages from the earthquake that we had to deal with amounted to about $3.5 million. And the reimbursements for that have been coming from the federal FEMA disaster relief money and from the state, to the degree that there's 100% reimbursement that's come back to the municipality based on everything. And that's not only the damage done, but also the the management time of people and getting reimbursed for that. No port money ever went towards the covering any of the costs of this. It was all federal money, and as the 75% and the 25% match came from the state. So we did not have to come out of pocket for any of this. So the reimbursements have been going back to those who provided the money to do the job. We've just had the responsibility of managing the repairs as they were being done, and managing the contracts to do the repairs as they were being done, and slogging our way through the administrative review process with our friends at FEMA. And that's where I gotta, that's where, once again, my hat is off to Sharon and to Cheryl, who have put a lot of time into dealing with the FEMA folks. It was quite the challenge in the beginning because it seemed like for the longest time, the players kept changing. And just when you got somebody to understand the lay of the land over here, off they went, and a new face came in, and all the questions got asked again, and you had to reclimb the learning curve with the new folks. And that happened a few times, and I can't imagine how frustrating it was, but they kind of kept their composure. Thank God it wasn't me, and got us through this. And we've got quite a rapport now with the folks at FEMA as a consequence of that. So there was some good that came out of it, in spite of all the work. And we are very close now to being done and being able to say we've made 100% of the repairs from the earthquake damage. So I just wanted to give you guys an update on where that whole process went. And the last item from me before I turn it over to the staff to give you their updates is this morning on the purchasing department's webpage is a request for proposal, numbers 2021 P009, for rate setting support for the municipality of Anchorage as it pertains to the Port of Alaska Modernization Program. Well, what the heck is that all about? Well, we have been struggling with how the plan of finance will or will not really get executed once we have a final design for the cargo docks. You guys have all seen a copy of the plan of finance. You've probably heard from all the users their opinions on what was proposed in there as potential rate increases and or surcharges as they pertain to the cost of the cargo docks. And long story short, we've got a new municipal manager who's got a finance background, and we've got a chief financial officer who would like to have some outside professional eyes look at that which we've put in place and ask us if we're doing it about as fairly and as best as we can, or if there are some modifications we could make to this in order to be a little bit fairer to all the players involved. It's a bit of a challenge to go out there and say you're going to charge one predominant user a different rate than the other predominant user, and the city can't find itself in a position where it takes a side. We have to be as fair and equitable as we possibly can, and we're just not sure we're there yet. So we're reaching out to get some help to make sure that we've turned every stone over, that we've looked at every option that we have, and are being as fair as possible as we progress into that point of this whole thing where we're going to have to put something either in the tariff or in the preferential user agreements or in both places to cover the cost of any debt service as it applies to the cargo dock part. Petroleum dock, PCT is behind us now, but the way ahead, we feel, in our guts that we need to take another look at it with some help from folks who may have been down this road before. So what I've been doing in the process of writing this RFP with the CFO, and we'll send you all a copy of it. If you want the attachments, I'll give you the link to the purchasing department's website so you can download all the attachments as well, the appendices that are going with it. But I'll give you the substantive RFP. And I just lost my train of thought going down that rabbit hole. Where was I going with this? What I did as part of the preliminary was I reached out to all my port friends in the industry through the AAPA and a couple of the other organizations that we belong to, and just asked them to if they had recommendations for folks that do this kind of thing for a living that they think might be interested in bidding on this RFP. So I got about a dozen folks to send this to. So that's my job for the next couple of days, is to put all this in an email and send it out to these folks, and hopefully we'll get some responses back for the selection committee to review, and we make a good choice. As far as the selection committee goes, it's going to be me and Cheryl, Anna Henderson, the municipal manager, Alex Slivka, who you know, the CFO, and Garrett Wong from the Port Commission has agreed to sit on the selection committee as well. So you guys are represented by your finance guy. So that I'm sure he'll, if he's got things he wants to bounce off of you guys, he'll do it. But in the meantime, that's the selection committee. And when the proposals all come back in, I think they've got till the end of June to submit them. We'll convene as quickly as possible and make a selection and turn this group loose. As it stands today, just like we did when we did the whole Capstan thing, we will give them about 60 days to do their thing. The appendices, I hope, give folks a lot of information to read ahead of time that they would otherwise have to wait for to until the contract award to begin looking at. We thought we would get all that out there ahead of time so that they could make a quality proposal or look at it and say, I don't want anything to do with this. So more to come on that. And oh, by the way, I just admitted Garrett. So he's a late arrival here coming on board. So I wanted to share that with you. I will make sure that I send to you before the end of the day a copy of the RFP, as I mentioned, absent the appendices. But I'll give you the link to the purchasing website. If you want to go in there and take a look and download the appendices, you're welcome to do so. So, and that concludes everything I wanted to talk about. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I see your hands up there, Jim, but just before we go there, I'm curious as to where the petroleum piece of the design would come out of that, or if it's part, I would imagine it's not part of that discussion. You're trying to figure out what the potential design costs would be, or what the status is of that. And then also, before you conclude, I just wanted to get some conversation or at least some updates on the kind of some of the emails we had with the structural analysis on the dock, and whether you want to discuss that, or Sharon
Well, I was hoping that would wait until we got to the informational items.
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to make sure we didn't miss it. But in terms
Yeah,
of the,
no, yeah, you kind of teed that up a little earlier too, if memory serves. Yeah. Jim, I'm sorry, your hand's up.
I just want to point out that Garrett Wong and Kevin Mackey have both joined the meeting.
Okay, so you have a full house now, Mr. Chair.
sounds good. Great.
Okay. All right, and
So
if there are no other questions for me, we can turn it over to the staff now.
Oh, I was just wondering where the petroleum piece was in terms of the design.
Of the cargo docks.
Yes, on the
Okay.
cargo dock.
That portion of the, and I don't have the number off the top of my head, that portion of the design cost for the cargo docks has a number now. And when we present to you when we get around to presenting to you the surcharge recommendation, you will see that number then with a surcharge attached to it. But this is if you'll indulge me, I don't want to throw that out there now, separate from that conversation. I would rather include that in the conversation with respect to the design, the surcharge to cover the cost of design for the cargo docks. It will be included in that.
Fair enough. I just wanted to know the status. And
Yeah, it's all that's been sort of factored.
okay, Jim, you had a comment or a question?
I was just going to point out that 12:30 has arrived, so the people who were the victim of our typo are showing up. We've had half a dozen people join in the last 5 minutes, so you may want to make a comment. Okay.
Yeah, we had an error in the schedule in terms of 12:30 versus 12. So we didn't change our normal time from 12. Unfortunately, it was published somewhere somehow at 12:30, but video transcript is available, and I apologize for that to anyone showing up to the later time. Any other questions from the commissioners for Steve? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go on to the informational items. Shannon?
Thank you, Brad. I'm Shannon, the Operations and Maintenance Superintendent here at the port. To start with maintenance, so we're continuing with snow removal. I've been working through the brief moments of thaw that we've experienced so far, trying to peel up as much ice and get rid of we can, so the pavement can expose itself much sooner. We're beginning to inspect all of our equipment and being prepared for summer when spring decides to show itself and get on with spring cleaning. On to the operations side of it. I just got an email today, and I'm sorry to see that the Hacienic cruise that was going to come in the fall time has just canceled. So that will no longer be arriving this year. Hopefully next year we can maybe get into some cruise ships. Next is the SDDCs. They still anticipate 2 arrivals this summer. One in July, I believe it is, and the other one is August or September. No official reservations sent in at this time, just a projection of what they'll be arriving in. And on to appreciation of all the users, SWAPA, Cook Inlet, Tug and Barge. Everyone's been a great help to myself and the port in planning of the users and the berthing conflicts during the construction season. I really appreciate everyone's attendance in the meetings. We're doing monthly meetings as an all-user group, and then narrowing that down for weekly meetings to discuss dredging, berthing, and the barge construction configurations that will be going on. Manson Construction did get the dredging contract, so they will be arriving back and hopefully, depending upon the ice, be able to start dredging April 1st is them. And we're excited to see them back and more excited to see them get to work as they can begin dredging and get rid of some of that sediment buildup and help us have a successful year. And that's all I have, Brad. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Has Roy joined us?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Roy, you're up for engineering services, please.
Thank you, Brad. So I'm Roy Blaine. I am the port engineering manager. So this summer we're getting ready for 4 projects that we have going into construction. We have finishing up from last fall's jacketing program out on the wharf. Global is going to be back out here this summer. I'm finishing those on Terminal 3, 2, 1, and POL 2. Then we also have the anode sled project for POL 2 that's going to be going on probably later so that we don't interfere with the work that's going on at the PCT this summer. And then we have the Ship Creek boat launch. We're replacing 2 sections of the bottom of the ramp. The concrete tiles have broken away, and they were having problems last year with getting stuck when the fishermen were backing in and out. So we're ordering new concrete planks, and we're going to replace them and do one side at a time to keep the boat launch open. That work will probably happen sometime in later May, early June. And then we have the outfall project. We have outfalls 1, 4, 7, and 8 that we are putting in, doing a bunch of different work, putting in new outfalls, putting in some tidal flex joints so that we don't get sediment from the tides that go back up the pipe and fill up the outfall pipe, and then lining some of the pipe so that we should be good for another hopefully 20 or 30 years. We're also moving the vault that's currently in the POVI. We're not moving it, but we're abandoning the vault that's in there, filling it up with grout, and installing a new vault outside of the fence so that it has better access and we don't have to crawl underneath pipes to test the vault contents and then release it out into the inlet. So making that better functionally. A couple other projects that we're working on is the going through the POVI and kind of retrofitting some of the flow devices that have gotten old. And we're also creating an operation and maintenance manual for the POVI so that we can get better direction when things break. We understand what's going on and we can hand it over to technicians that come out to fix it. And then probably the last thing that I'm working on that's worth mentioning in this group is working on basically doing a structural analysis of the existing wharf. So from Terminal 1 all the way to Terminal 3, we're taking and looking at the previous drawings, doing a code analysis on it, figuring out how the wharf would be, what the loading requirements or loading availability would be for in today's code, looking at the inspection that we did last summer, looking at that report, looking for weak areas, and looking for mitigation measures. This is going to take a while. We've probably got a 3 or 4 month deal with the engineers. And so hopefully every commissioner's meeting I'll have something to fill you in on that subject. And the whole idea is to make sure we know our weak points, what areas of the dock, the wharf that we need to keep in operation to keep Matson and Tote being able to come in and out, and then getting a monitoring program together to make sure that we don't get surprises and have problems with operations. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Roy. Anybody in the Port Commission have questions for Roy? Ron, go ahead.
Oh, Ron, you're on mute.
Thanks. Quick question about the underwater pile inspection report that Steve was kind enough to pass on to us. And thank you, Steve, because sometimes I have trouble falling asleep over here. And that definitely helped out. But
Yeah, not nearly enough
this report, right? And I'm no engineer, but they used to work for me. A couple things jumped out at me, Roy, and maybe you can explain. One of the things that they specifically state here is that no cathodic protection was indicated, and all testing piles are actively corroding. So I remember Sharon at a previous meeting when we were discussing POL2 talking about how the cathodic protection system had been found to be inoperative on POL2, but according to this report, there's been no cathodic protection in evidence during this inspection, and it sounds like for quite some time. Is your plan to install anodes, or is there something in the works to get some cathodic protection going to save what we have until we get something new built? Over.
Good question. So the cathodic protection varies along the dock. POL2 has the best cathodic protection currently in operation. All the docks that at one point in time had cathodic protection that, and just to remind people who don't know possibly, is cathodic protection slows down corrosion. Anything that you put in the water, anything on earth corrodes, right? And there's different rates depending on the conditions. And obviously putting metal in salt water is a condition that corrodes things quite rapidly. This cathodic protection will slow it down. It doesn't stop it, it slows it down. The cathodic protection on POL2 is in its best form of any of the wharfs, but even that is pretty weak because we lost, we used to have 6 anode sleds out there. And for those who don't know what anode sleds are, it's about the size of a back of a pickup truck, weighs about 10,000 pounds, and it's basically kind of a big hunk of metal. And what it does is instead of the piles in the water, the metal in the water on our wharfs deteriorating, those anodes deteriorate instead. So they get eaten up, if you will. And there's been 3 or 4 over from the drawings that I can find, there's been 3 or 4 different systems that have been employed on the oldest parts of the dock. They used to have anodes that were drilled and put into the bank. Then there was anodes that were put out underneath the wharf at one point in time. And then they finally went, I think in the late 80s, they went with these anode sleds, which are basically an extension cord that goes out to this big hunk of metal that's put out near the dock. And as it deteriorates, they last anywhere from 5 to 15 years, depending on how active the corrosion is. And then you have to go put in a new one. And these things aren't cheap. They're about $500,000 to $700,000, and then you got to put them in. And then they're a little sensitive. If they get shaken too much or things happen, they can break. And obviously, you can't pull them back up because they get all silted in. So you got to go buy a new one. On the POL2 dock, we have 6 that were originally designed. We have currently 1 in operation because they have broken. And we have a plan this summer to put 2 more back out there. On the rest of the dock, we kind of have, I think we have 2 out of 6 on the south end, so by Terminal 1. And on Terminal 3, we have 2 out of 5 working. And decisions of why or didn't fix them or the money or whatever, that's before me. I started in June, so I can't speak to any of that. But I'm guessing that as the excitement over getting a new wharf has come into everybody's being over the last, I've heard, 5 to 8 years. I'm sure putting millions of dollars into a cathodic protection system for a deteriorating one is probably been put on the back burner. So that's kind of what he meant by what he was saying in that system. We are definitely under the threshold of protecting it and I'm going to call it a standard rate of ports. And it is probably because of, getting a new one. The whole thing is timing that, right? Of when the old one is going to fall over and you have the new one in place already. So that's what I know about our cathodic protection system. I don't know if that answered your question, Ron. I know I got kind of lengthy.
Well, partially, Roy. Partially it answers it. But I mean, the report is inconsistent with your answer because it specifically states there's no cathodic protection. And you're stating that there's some anode sleds and sacrificial anode sleds, which are supposed to, slow down the rate of corrosion. Maybe this is a foolish question, but I mean, on ships, we have impressed current systems that slow the rate of corrosion. And I guess that's probably not an option if you guys are using very expensive anode sleds.
And that from what I've learned is that these anode sleds seem to get the best, given our situation. So our situation is totally different than one in Mexico versus a ship. They did try at one point in time attaching, I think ships are similar where they attach the anode to the side of the metal. I know our floating dock has that kind of system. The problem is ice tears everything off, and so they only lasted a season. So like I said, they've tried a bunch of different ones. Now, no versus some is probably an opinion. I'm telling you that there's still, if you come out to the port, you'll see the rectifiers that have the little red lights on them. The ones that have red lights on means they're working, and you'll see more without the red light on than the ones without. So John Daly, who wrote that report, in his opinion, obviously he thinks that there isn't enough cathodic protection to really speak about. And he's probably more educated than I. I'm a structural engineer. So yeah, they are corroding faster than they would otherwise. And you can see in the report on how far they are. And my objective with this structural analysis is to figure out how far we can go before we start having problems.
Yeah, I remember when they had them all connected with copper wire. Each piling had to be connected in a series, and they had the hanging cables, and the cables, they ripped out with all the icing underneath, and the heavy weight destroyed them. But Paul, I believe you had a question.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Roy, thanks for the update. There's obviously a lot going on. Your second bullet, forgive me, you mentioned my notes. I wrote a sled project for POL2. Maybe I misunderstood you. Could you elaborate on what that project is?
That is part of the cathodic protection to replace 2 sleds that broke 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yep. So that'll add 2, so we'll have 3 out of the original 6 in operation at the end of summer.
And when's that project supposed to happen, just for coordination? Obviously, POL 1 and 2, lots of concern on work being done and access to it. And could you give us an update on when that would be and what the impact would be for traffic?
Yeah, so that work, the good thing about that work is it's all land-based. So we don't have to worry about any ship problems on those. Because basically they low tide, they trench out, and then they float and bury the extension cord, and then they float the anode out, and then they sink it just land side of the dock. So, but I have to make sure that I'm not there working when PCT is trying to run their pipelines from PCT all the way to the POVI, which is, right past POL 2. So we're probably gonna be doing that in August or late August, early September is when we're gonna do the anode project.
Thanks, Roy.
Yep.
Okay, any more questions for Roy? Okay.
Thanks,
Sharon.
Roy, but, okay.
Oh, go ahead, Ron.
Well, I mean, that was the only one of the items that kind of jumped out at me in this underwater pile inspection. I was interested to hear what Sharon and Roy, as engineers, thought about this. Obviously, Roy is concerned enough to ask for a further structural analysis, concerned about failure. But I see just a minimal percentage of severe or critical issues with piling based on this. And I don't know, it looks a little alarmist to me. I'm just interested in their opinion and how they plan to move forward. Thank you.
I guess a follow up to that would be, where are we with pile solutions? Are we continuing down that path this year? I know you said Global was coming in. Is that correct? Or are they just doing inspections?
No, so we still have some pile jackets that we have to put on, some FEMA ones that we were doing and some other ones. Yeah, Ron, we have, we only inspected 1,460 piles, and of those 1,460, we didn't get thickness readings on all. Alarmant, or what my objective as an engineer is to make sure that before we actually have problems with the dock, we can predict them and that we know what's going on, because time will solve a lot of emergencies. And so my objective right now is to figure out where we are with the dock as it stands. And then that will determine, what monitoring program we want to do and what areas of the dock that we need to monitor. We don't have to monitor the whole thing, but there might be areas that are more crucial. I'm thinking underneath the Matson cranes, the areas where the tote ramps roll out. Those are super important areas that have high loads on them. And so I want to get an understanding so that we can be proactive, and that I don't have to go out on a Monday and tell Matson, hey, you're done. I'm shutting you down because this thing is going to collapse, So we got to be before that. And in order to do that, we need to start today and understand our dock. Because right now we don't. We understand what the drawings said in 1960, but we don't know how that correlates with today's engineering standards and what the standards of care are right now in 2021. So that's where I'm going right now, is being proactive. So I'm not trying to be Chicken Little. I don't think the dock's going to fall down tomorrow, but I think if we do nothing, if we don't look at it and take this engineering step, that we won't know when the dock is going to fall down. So I want to make sure that everybody has warning, and hopefully 5-year warning, right? Versus, next week we're going to have to shut her down. So, and I don't want anybody to get hurt. That would be horrible.
Okay,
Bob,
thank you, Roy.
question?
Yeah, real quick. I'm totally on board with Ron's comments. When I read the report, it was very clear that if you looked at 10-year increments, you could see where we were going to be in the next 10 years in building, and whether you can get a 3-year or 5-year warning on areas of heavy load. I think that's critical, but the clock is clearly ticking with the report that we were getting.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Roy. Sharon?
Okay, just to add to that, my Teams is being a little weird. I wasn't able to raise my hand for some reason. It kept blinking out. But to address Ron's comment about he didn't see that that the discrepancy between what we talked about with cathodic protection POL2 versus what the report was talking about. To clarify, the inspection that the report is covering is the contiguous dock. It's from terminals 1, 2, and 3. So POL 2 was not part of that particular inspection because we did some underwater work on that the summer before. So that's why that POL 2 does have cathodic protection, but the report said there was no cathodic protection. So I hope that helps clear that up. Okay, so on what's going on with the project, the PAMP. Let's start with the PCT. We're about to start the second phase of the construction. This will be the bells and whistles, we call it. It's the pipelines, the hose tower, everything to make it possible to put it to work. And the barge is loading now. We have the last giant piling is being finished, fabrication's finishing up. They right now anticipate to leave around March 31st, a week from now. And, history has shown that, that usually slips a couple of days, but that is the plan. The other big thing about the PCT that we had to deal with is over the winter, we found that we had much more sediment fill in south of the existing platform that we built last year than we expected, to the tune of like 100,000 yards. And so we had to do a change order to allow for dredging of that. So time and everything else, it wasn't feasible to bid that work out. So we did a change order to Pacific Pilot Marine, and their first work when they get here, they're bringing up a barge set up for dredging. They'll be using a long reach excavator to do the work, and the Corps, thank goodness, has approved that under the existing transitional dredging permit. So the first work you'll see out there is a bunch of dredging to get us back to where we were at the end of the transitional dredging project we did in 2019. So that was a unanticipated event. There's been lots of sediment modeling done on the PCT where it is in its final configuration, and we don't expect this to be an ongoing problem. It's a temporary thing that happened because the construction barge is sitting there last year, but we don't expect any problems once the project is complete. So that's the first thing you'll see is that. Then they'll get busy with the work at the POVI, tying into the POVI. There's lots of coordination that's going on, thank goodness, that Shannon and Roy have been so busy helping coordinate how to keep port operations going while that happens. Thanks to all the users again for all their collaboration. And one special shout out to Roy is that he's worked with Michael Baker. I don't think he highlighted this, to have a very simple jumper pipe put in, and he can elaborate configuration so that we can now we'll be able to offload ULSD, ultra low sulfur diesel, at POL 1 when POL 2 is blocked by the barges. So lots of work has gone into all this to keep the complex down as much as possible, and we're happy about that. So you will see a big mess if you come onto the port now once this business all gets going, because some of these pipelines are above ground, some are underground, there's valves to be tied in, all these things. So it's pretty exciting though. We've had a lot of log jams get out of the way. We were able to get the change order approved by the Assembly for the dredging, so we dealt with that unexpected problem. We've been able to work with NIMS and the Corps to get our permitting situations aligned, so that's good. Things are starting to, we've handled most of the Buy American situations with the procurement that ties in with the grants, and we're just about to sign the actual paperwork on the grants from MARAD for both build and PIDP. So all those things are lining up, and we should kind of be able to be about the business of just building the darn thing. So we're happy about that. Another thing is happening, so for work going forward, is some of you will be interested, especially is the admin building. We've determined there's no reason to be waiting to get the admin building off the stock. We need to get it out of the way so that as we get the cargo wharf design and construction schedule together, that we don't have to worry about, well, what do we do about the admin building? So we have scoped a task to the project management team to do a initial scoping, like a 10% design. We've located a site for the building, which is going to be just south of where our existing warm storage building is. We may actually put it where the sand tent is now, but those are contiguous locations, and we're doing the initial site selection to determine which of those makes the most sense. So we have the goal is when they're done with this task, which is the I think May 15th, we will be putting out an RFP for design build of a replacement administration building. So that's a tangible piece of work that probably be the next thing that you actually see groundbreaking on. We would anticipate we stay on schedule, have the design this year, and perhaps break ground on that next spring. So that's pretty exciting. And as a side note to that, the Economic Development Administration, we did submit a grant application to them that was not successful, but they called us, reached out to us, said they will have some CARES Act funding they would like us to reapply. So we're putting all those things in order to see if we can get some help paying for that. So that's going to be nice if we can. And let's see. We also are in anticipation of the rest of the program. We're developing an agreement with the Corps of Engineers. It's called the 214 agreement, where we will have basically we'll be providing some funding so that they can dedicate specific personnel to port work, and we don't have to wait in line for everybody else, and we'll have continuity in our work. So our permitting going forward should be more streamlined than we've had in the past. We see a lot of benefit to that. And finally, the biggest news is that tomorrow we will be sitting down. We call it the tri-party meeting or the three-party meeting with Tote and Mattson. We've had individual conversations with them over the last several months, and our goal is to, as the term I think Valdreyfus came up with, is to link arms going into the design charrette so that Tote, Mattson, and the port are all quite aligned on what concept or what configuration the cargo wharfs will have. And as you know, we revisited over the last year, 18 months, what's the bare bones? What do we need? Not what do we want? And all those talks have finally come around full circle. Tomorrow we'll be sitting down to finalize some decisions, which we will take forward to the charrette, some concept decisions that we'll take forward to the charrette. And so we believe we're very close. After tomorrow, we'll actually be able to put a date on that charrette and move forward. Then the charrette, of course, will invite all the other parties besides the primary cargo users. And that's going to be, we're shooting for April for that. So that's another, I'll call it a logjam that's broken up, and we see forward progress coming. So I think that's about it. Oh, I should say that the concept also will include the petroleum piece you were asking about earlier, Brad. And right now the concept for that is a alternate fuel system on the cargo wharfs. And the idea of that, if we can make that work, which we believe we can not have to build a second petroleum dock, which of course would save quite a lot of money. I think it's 260 million or something like that. So that's the configuration that we're going into, the idea we're going into the charrette with. Questions?
Yeah, this is Bob. Hey, Sharon, following both you and Roy, could you clarify the POVI?
I'm sorry, Bob, I'm having some feedback. I'm going to turn off my microphone while you ask the question, then I'll come back on.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Sharon. Would you, for the other members who may not know what the term POVI means, would you clarify that?
A good question. POVI is the Port of Alaska Valve Yard, affectionately known as the POVI. So it's existing apparatus is where we transfer all the fuel that comes off the fuel ship. It's transferred to
The same thing that happened to Bob when he started talking, Sharon, happened to you when you started talking. So I think we got about half of what you said.
the only way to solve that is for everyone who isn't speaking is to please turn off their mics. But again, the POVI is a Port of Alaska valve yard, which is the apparatus where when fuel comes off a ship through the different pipelines into the valve yard, it's transferred to the different users and the different tank farms.
Thank you. Any other questions? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, Sharon, thank you.
Done a good job. Well, I look forward to our next meeting having a lot more new progress to tell you about. And with COVID restrictions easing, perhaps we can arrange a site walk once we've got some construction going on for you.
Sounds good. Let's see, Jim. Mr. Jagger, you're up.
Okay, thought Cheryl was going to be next, but I can do this. So we are working.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Cheryl. Why have you come up last?
We being the port, are working with the municipal administration to pursue PAMP funding or modernization program funding, probably under the proposed general obligation bond. The Muni originally in its request put in a request for 121 million, which would basically pay for the first portion of the North End extension stabilization work. Senator Begich has a proposal in right now that is asking for $200 million in that general obligation bond to go toward the various project pieces. I'll let you know how it works out when the smoke clears. We are also pursuing a number of either pursuing or watching for a number of federal grant obligation or opportunities. As predicted, the new administration is opening up quite a few new opportunities that we're in the process of pursuing the port to pursue. Specifically for non-port modernization programs, we are working on getting our first port security grant together. That grant application will have at least 4 pieces in it. One will be for a new access control system. That's the card system that we use for getting into the port. Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Coast Guard are bringing new TWIC requirements into line. And as the current access control system we have is not compatible with those new requirements, it's also not compatible with some of the new cybersecurity requirements that are coming in. So we are looking to replace the system so we can be compliant. The second piece of our grant application is going to be for the security systems radio communications. And when I'm talking about radio communications, this isn't the talkie radios that people use to talk to one another. It's the microwave system that we use to have all of our cameras and our various control systems, access control systems communicate. So it's a microwave grid that's established over the whole port. And we're looking to update that so that it can accommodate the higher data volumes that we're using with today and also the new cyber security requirements. The third piece of our security grant is probably going to be for some upgrades to our CCTV, that's the security camera system, to improve the capabilities and again align with new cybersecurity requirements that are coming online. And then the fourth piece of the security grant we're getting ready to chase will be for haul road gate improvements. They're the gate between J-Bear and the port. We have some upgrades to make to support snow dump and some other physical security pieces. We were just attempting to get a grant for the TOFSI, that's trailer on flat car. It's basically the rail loading system that we want to build on the port. There was a very quick turnaround infra grant that opened up earlier this month and was due last week. We were not able to get our numbers together for the benefit cost analysis to show how much money that project would save in a timely fashion. We are still pulling that information together because we expect to get another bite at the grant apple later this summer when the federal infrastructure bill comes in. So we are still looking very carefully at putting a trailer on flat car loading facility here at the port. And you know, as the grant applications or opportunities open, we will keep chasing it. The next thing that you'll be interested in is, oh, I forgot to say, with the port security grant, I plan to discuss the, have a detailed discussion of the port security grant with our port security members in the next few weeks. We're in the process of pulling together the needs document so that we can have cost estimates. As soon as I have those, we're going to have a port security meeting. After that meeting, I will brief the Port Commission probably next meeting about that. The next big thing we're working on is our port power plan. We're making excellent progress working with Department of Energy and Chugach Electric. So that you know, the port power plan is basically we want to turn the port into what's called a connected microgrid, so that in the event of a major grid outage, we can unplug from the grid, generate our own power, and keep the port operating. The port power plan really has, I guess, 4 goals. One is going to be power system resiliency and reliability so that we can keep operating in the event of a major power outage. The second piece is to reduce the power cost for port users. The third piece is to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And the fourth piece is going to be to support port modernization as the various port users upgrade their equipment to new and emerging cargo technologies, things like electronic vehicles. We need to make sure the port's electrical system will handle that. I expect to have a what's called a one-line drawing of what the project would look like coming together, and I should have a report together for the Port Commission next meeting. And that's pretty much what I have to talk about.
Okay, any questions for Jim? Seeing none, thank you, Jim. Cheryl, my apologies. I took too many notes here and your name got lost in there. But
oh, no worries at all. I'll go ahead and share my screen if that's okay with everyone. And we can
let me interrupt for just a second. I see Abe's question.
Okay.
Go ahead, Abe's.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was a little slow on getting my hand up there. Jim, you were talking about upgrades to the security access system to the port. Will that have any significant impact on the truck driver identification process? You mentioned that the feds are working on some TWIC upgrades. You have any details on that at all, or just are they still just talking in very broad strokes?
We do have some details on that. It will impact TWIC cards and the truckers. They will still have to have a TWIC card. One of the things that we are hoping to accomplish is to reduce the number of cards that we're all carrying around in our wallets. So that one of the things the new TWIC requirements are going to have to, or make us do, is we will have to have, if not real time, at least daily access to what's called the TWIC canceled card list. That's a list that the federal government puts out every day that says, okay, these people have TWIC cards, but some of them may be on a watch list or temporarily suspended. You know, maybe they've done something since they got their TWIC card that has made them a security risk. And right now, we do not have a way to check that on a live basis. So when a trucker pulls into the port, we check his or her ID and we confirm that they have a TWIC card, but we don't know if they're on the canceled card list. So the new system will do a live check and tell us right away, hey, this person is on the canceled card list. What I'm hoping the new system will do is it will also mean that If you have a TWIC card, you're not going to have a port access card also. The card reader will read your TWIC card and will identify your number and say, yes, this person is allowed on the port, or no, this person is not on the pass list, they have to go into security. So if anything, it should simplify the lives of truckers who haven't done something to get themselves canceled.
Well, that's good news, Jim. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aves. Cheryl, back to you.
Okay. All right, so let me get my screen here and I'll just share the financial report that was included in all your packets and posted on the website. There we go. And everyone can see that, I'm assuming.
Yes.
All right. All right, so this report that we have attached is through February the 28th, so it's only the first 2 months of the year. One of the things to note as you go through is that the municipality is also preparing for its 2020 financial audit. So the timing of things is not exactly up to date. Now, I pulled this report for us on the 15th of March, so I'm it's fairly up to date. I would say probably 90% of all of the payments and the billings and everything are posted for us through 2/28. So you'll see that we have just slightly below of where our target is, 16.7, which is just 100% divided by 12 months. We don't really follow that type of a revenue stream. It's for a measurement purpose more than anything. So as I went through and reviewed all the revenues, I didn't really have any concerns on where we're at or where we should be compared to our budget. So if there's, and then we can scoot on down through the expenses, same kind of a thing with the expense report. You know, we have personnel that's posted only through the middle of February. So, you know, that'll be a catch-up type of a posting all through the year. As you guys get this report, you'll see. Non-labor, a lot of the expenditures that we have budgeted here take place in the summertime, spring and summertime. So as we track through the year, we'll see those types of things, you know, continue to catch up with our target percentage. No, as of this date, the report, there were no legal services paid, no MISA paid, and no debt service paid. So those, again, that's all timing issues for us. And as the reports, as you continue to get the reports, you'll see that those will catch up. As we all know, the trial was in February, so we expect to see, you know, a posting for legal services here eventually. So the MISA and the dividend payments all take place in the second half of the year. And the debt service, I can take a minute. You know, as most of you know, we sold bonds at the end of the year, which gave us the ability to pay off our line of credit, which is what you would see here as the payment for the line of credit. What's going to happen with the debt service line is we have a request for first quarter budget revision for 2021 to increase this line an additional $1.3 million. So this debt service budget will change to about 2.6 for round numbers. We have debt service payments for our new bond issues that will pay in June and again in December. So we have the amortization schedules all out. This debt service budget will be exactly what the debt service payments are set out to be. So we can cover those when the time comes. Depreciation amortization is just a calculation and a posting that happens at the central finance level. Same with IGCs. And then we have our little calculation to demonstrate our cash flow when we add back our non-cash item of depreciation. The tonnage at the bottom of your worksheet is fairly strong for this year. I did not include my month-to-month year comparison, but I'll add that for next time if everyone's interested in that. This we see in 2021, 657,000 tons, and in 2020 for February, we had 503. So a significant increase for 2021 so far, but we can, as the year goes on, we'll add the comparison so we can just keep track of that and for informational purposes. And that's about all I have on the report, unless there's any questions.
Okay, any questions? Ron, you mentioned you may have to leave us here shortly. Paul, you have your hand up?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. This is Paul Mailer. Cheryl, could you explain, I just need a little bit more understanding of the increase for debt services. I wasn't following the explanation.
Okay. So in 2020, yeah, sure. In 2020, the port sold bonds for $60 million, right? So this line item for debt service has historically been interest payments on the line of credit, which was a $40 million. So these were just interest only payments that were made. And at the end of the year, public finance sold $60 million in bonds. Now, 40 of that went to pay off the short-term borrowing program, which the interest here is the 1.35 in previous years. And then we have new debt that was established that we'll have to pay debt service on. So at the time we did the budget, the amortization schedules were not set out, and we did not know what the payments were going to be on the new borrowings, the revenue bonds. So once that was registered and the bonds were sold, we were able to get those payments, and we can now adjust the debt service payments to cover the bonds instead of this number, which was only a representation of interest on the short-term borrowing. That doesn't sound very clear, but if it was clear, great. If you have any other questions, just ask, because it's kind of I mean, it's not confusing to me, but articulating it might be I might just need to explain some more. So if you have more questions, Paul, just ask.
I appreciate it, Cheryl. That makes more sense. It's still,
okay.
It's I see the big picture on why that big increase. I get it. It's
right.
Number wise, it's gray, but I understand why it shows up that way.
Yep, and we have, so the amortization schedules that get created when the bonds are sold are pretty much set in stone when the bonds get sold. The agency that sells, the financial institution that sells you those revenue bonds, they basically say, we'll sell you this, we'll give you this money for these reasons that you listed out, but you have to promise to pay us back based on this schedule. So the adjustment in first quarter 2021 that we need to make for the budget is basically appropriating the exact amortization payments for that debt service that we incurred at the end of the year, last year.
Understood. And final question, Cheryl, when you and I spoke on it the last meeting was looking at something for maintenance and long-term planning. And I know you said, we're going to look at that later, but just something I continue to, I think it's important that as, managing this budget, we do put money aside so that folks coming in after us aren't faced with the same challenges we had, where there is some sort of the budget put aside for maintenance and repairs and long-term issues.
Correct. I would agree 100%. And, I think that going forward, when Steve and I and the group looks at the rate setting consultants, and when we talk, the depreciation amortization is a schedule that you get that gives you what you should be putting away to recover costs of infrastructure that you've already spent. It doesn't account for, any kind of inflationary numbers. But as we mentioned before, right, the port and its rates didn't accommodate depreciation and amortization. So even just accounting for those in our rate structures going forward, I think is a step in the right direction. But I totally appreciate it, and we are right on the same page.
Okay, Thank you.
And
Yep.
yeah, Paul, this is Steve. Just to piggyback a little bit on what Cheryl had mentioned is what we're talking about, for the group is we're talking about doing something we've never done here at the port before, and that's funding depreciation. And as opposed to just counting it and then adding it back in later. This now falls into the policy making category, which means that, if we as a group collectively believe that this is the best way forward for the port, then we would have to suggest to the municipality that we would like to change the way we keep the books down here and fund depreciation and put that set aside there consciously for the future. As I mentioned, we've never done this before, but your point's a very well taken one, and we kind of agree with you on that. But we're not going to be allowed to do that all by our own. We're going to need to get some understanding from the leadership of the municipality that this is a way we would like to go, and this is what things are going to look like down at the port from now on. So I think the first time to seriously have this conversation with all the users and with the Port Commission will be after we have parish blessing do the end of the year review, like we are obligated to do every year, to take a look at what we have collected with respect to the debt service we have in place now, and forecast whether or not we can make adjustments to the tariff. And what that has always meant was bring the numbers down so that because if we're collecting more than we really think we need to, or do we decide to leave well enough alone and in fact take this on, build that fund so that 20, 30 years from now, if we need major infrastructure work here, we don't have to debate why we didn't think of that 20, 30 years ago. Yeah, so I offer that suggestion. And I'll do a better job of capturing that in the minutes this time, I promise. But I think the best time to do this for the first time will be after we get this end of year review that we have to report to the assembly on. And in that report, we can make this suggestion for consideration.
I appreciate that. And I think we're all on the same page. It's important. None of us want to leave this, moving forward to the same mess we inherited here. But, if you need something from us as commissioners to go back to the municipality to change this, I think there's enough interest and we're all in agreement it's the right way moving forward. We can certainly support.
Right. We appreciate that. I think that, one of the closing comments that I'll make is just this, it's been a long process, right? And we're continuing to walk down that path. And I think that the tariff proposals and the process are things that, are thoughtful and, forward looking. So, I think just continuing to be committed to that and walk down that path to, have rates established that truly do reflect your enterprise costs, right? Enterprises you set rates based on user fees based on need. So that includes replacement. And so I think in the past when the ports relied on grants, they thought, well, that makes it that much easier for the rates to be more manageable for the users. But as time has gone on, I think that practice was, maybe it's just different times require, different decisions. So keeping that in mind and walking down that path to just include depreciation in the rate setting is just the next step.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's great. I think the one thing we got to be concerned about is it being a money grab as administrations change or whatever. So it needs to be some locked up and hopefully in a way that we can continue to invest in the port. And who knows, maybe with earmarks, at least talking about earmarks returning, maybe we'll get lucky here with the investment in infrastructure. Maybe that'll get passed. And
Which is why it has to be a policy decision.
Yep, understood. Okay, moving forward, I know Ron is talking about having to leave us. And Bob, are you going to be able to stick with us here a little bit? I'd like to capture your comments before you leave. I know you had an appointment.
I have to leave at 1:30, so no, I can make a very quick comment and depart from there.
At what time, Bob?
1:30, 3 minutes.
Okay, you want to make your comments now?
Yes, I appreciate it. And I was approached by Representative Fields, who is reintroducing a resolution called House Joint Resolution 15, which will be heard between Military and Veteran Affairs in the House tomorrow at 1 o'clock to discuss getting the Department of Defense to invest in the port. In the approach, I rewrote my personal comments I had given last year to a comparable. And after consulting with Steve and Jim, have provided written comments into the committee. So where it goes from here, I don't know, but I wanted the commission to at least know that our resolution from last year about including Department of Defense in the Maritime Administration that was picked up by the House is again being reintroduced in the House, specifically not at MARAD, but at the potential of having direct DoD funds.
Yeah, I think that's great, Bob. And kudos to you for going and leveraging some of your relationships and moving that forward. I don't know if there's time as a commission to write something similar, but I really appreciate you taking the extra effort and getting that out there.
I will share my comments with the commissioners.
Yeah, would you please?
I have to leave.
Very good. Well, thank you. With that, Ron, are you still with us? Do you have any comments before you have to go, or do you still have time? If you are speaking, you're on mute. I see you're still there. I think we lost Ron.
And Mr. Chair, you've still got a quorum, but you really have nothing you've got to vote on. So for what that's worth.
Understood. Thank you, Steve. Moving on, unless there's other questions for sure, I think we were done there. Moving on, old business, tariff surcharge for cargo dock design. I know we talked about that a little bit. You want to elaborate?
Yeah, I started to address that a little bit earlier in my opening comments, but when we postponed this at the last meeting, it was because we weren't quite ready with the calculations just yet, and we wanted to make sure that what we gave you was about as defendable as we possibly could, so that when the conversation opened up, we could have a pretty respectable. And you would have all the information. I also promised you that I would, since we were postponing it, that I would give you plenty of time to review it ahead of time so that, you wouldn't be seeing it for the first time along with everybody else at the Port Commission meeting. And that puts you in a trick about whether or not you can honestly make a decision. As Cheryl and I worked with Parish Blessing to get us to that point, which I was hoping we would have reached about 3 weeks ago, we found a wrinkle that we wanted to work through and that was with respect to the plan of finance. Were we going to recommend anything in this surcharge recommendation to you guys that would have thrown a monkey wrench into the plan of finance? Because all the conversations we've had so far had been in-house, but we did not loop in the CFO's office, particularly the folks that work with the banking community and who helped set up the plan of finance to make sure that we weren't going to suggest anything that was counter to what their plans were in the long run. And so we took a break in order to get that meeting together and get those folks to talk. Long story short, those conversations were had, but they weren't had until just recently. Again, not enough time to pass the results of it all to you so you could feel comfortable that you've had enough time to digest it before we sat here and had an intelligent conversation about it. So what I've asked you to do is to indulge us one more time to put this on the agenda for real, for action at the next Port Commission meeting. And now that we know what it is we want to tell you, and it's been vetted, we can get that to you sooner and give you enough time to look at it and ask the questions you want to ask of the staff before we get to the Port Commission meeting and discuss it in the public forum. So long story short, it's while it's still it's on the old business as left unaddressed, and I appreciate your indulgence to do that one more time, and then we'll have our act truly together for the next Port Commission meeting.
Okay. Any questions of Steve on that? Seeing none. New business.
And we have no new business for you all.
Okay. Public comments. Anybody in the public like to raise their hand and make a statement?
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Is this Eugene?
Hello? Yeah, it's me.
Yes. Please identify yourself and
Right.
go ahead.
Okay. I'll start my timer. My name is Eugene Carl Haberman. I follow the public process. When the public process is done appropriately, decision made by the governing body is more likely in the public interest. First, I'd like to thank the staff and the commission's cooperation to make sure there's now a video audio for these meetings, particularly for this meeting you're having right now. It was a conflict. There was a Assembly Ethics Selection Committee meeting. And can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Eugene.
Okay, I just want to make sure. There was Assembly Ethics Selection Committee meeting today. And so here you have Assembly members not being able to at least attend your meeting. I'm sure that they're concerned with what is going on with the Port of Alaska. And I would encourage you to make sure that you don't have that conflict. I know it's hard because the way Assembly meetings happen, they happen sometimes last minute, and they really don't look at what other meetings are happening, just theirs. So, but I'll bring that up to them too. And because what you're doing is very important and should have more opportunity for particularly the Assembly to be able to attend and hear what's being said. Second is, yes, there's a quorum to the meeting. I heard toward the end when commissioners were leaving at like 1:30, but that concerns me because here you have commissioners leaving, and I know the agenda was ending at 1:30, but the fact is that here's public comment, and you have commissioners left without hearing for public comment, and that's not too good. Second is, I think I'll just close it with there, but I'm more and more impressed with what you do, and both staff and the commission, and I thank you for all your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Eugene. And anyone else have comment? Seeing or hearing none, hand raised. Port Director's closing comments. You're back up. Anything else?
No, thank you, sir. I think we've covered the watershed today. I will apologize one last time for being a little overly lean on the contents on the minutes from the last meeting, and I'll try my best to see if I can figure out where more information is needed versus just assuming everybody who's interested is just gonna whip out the recording and listen to it and find out for themselves the gory details. I'll do a better job of putting some of that in the minutes going forward. And I will correct the minutes from the last meeting on those 2 points that Ron Ward brought up, and run those around to you guys for final review before we post them officially.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, I think it's much appreciated. I think we just use it more as a reminder as we get into these, if there's anything we needed to dig in more. At least that's what I do. So appreciated.
Okay.
Port commissioners' comments. Any port commissioners have additional or anything they want to add? let's see. Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. I just wanted to just again highlight the appreciation for the port's leadership team working with the port users and all this deconflicting schedules and trying to make the operations work. There's a lot that's happening behind the scenes, and I wanted to just in this forum applaud the team that's working with Steve to put this all together. We're meeting now weekly. There's a lot of phone calls, a lot of coordination, a lot of good teamwork to make this summer work with the construction efforts and allowing operations to continue. And I'm pretty impressed with that effort and wanted to publicly, as a commissioner, tell them and we appreciate that work and that leadership. So thanks, guys, and good work on that.
Thank you, Paul. Aves, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, Commissioner, or Mr. Chairman, I should say. I just want to echo Paul's comments there. The staff's doing a great job, and just add that I support exploring the issue of the depreciation recapture. I think it makes a lot of sense because, you know, we buy the equipment or the building or the whatever that might be, it depreciates over the years. And when it falls apart, we don't have anything to replace it. And we depend on grants. And depending on grants is a kind of a self-defeating effort because they don't always show up when you need them. So I appreciate the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Aves. Simon, I see you have your hand up.
I do. Thank you. Likewise, I want to echo that as well. And congratulations on getting the 100% grants for the earthquakes. I thought that was great. And you guys seem to be doing very well with grant writing and that kind of stuff. And we seem to be very successful on that. And congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Aves, your hand still up, or do you have?
Nope. Sorry, Mr. Chairman. I'm done.
Okay. And any other commissioners? Garrett. You're muted there, Garrett.
Sorry about that. Right now I just wanted to say that, you know, as we're coming out of the COVID-19 debacle of this last year, one of the things that is apparent to all of us is that the city of Anchorage, the state of Alaska, is economically stressed. And you're never going to be hitting the bar for a few dollars here in the not too distant future. And I think it's important that all of us pay attention to our elected officials. And if in fact we can't get them to buy in a bigger active way to write some checks, because, you know, as they say, you know, the federal government's doing a great job of flowing out money all kinds of directions. And maybe there's an opportunity in all this as they flow out money, given the COVID, to wrap into some of that as a form of seed capital as we go through our repair phases on our dock. And Brad, you and I had talked with the state of Alaska, Ben Stevens specifically. Now that Ben's going, I'm just wondering if we shouldn't make an effort to go back to the state about the matter of who ought to be taking over the port's operations and ownership, just because we need some deep pockets to make it all happen well. So just a few thoughts as we move forward out of COVID-19 back to the new norm.
Yeah, it's probably time, Garrett, with the change of administration here and potential change of administration here in Anchorage as well. We'll probably may get some traction. We were, you know, a little animosity there between parties. I think we were bucking into, but not unique in our culture here today. But appreciate your comments and agree. We'll get together here. Anyone else? Seeing none, I would reiterate. I know it's been challenging. I think the port's been doing a great job. It's just been a very long frustrating process, I think, for all involved, but it's great to see the PCT coming forward, and excited about that coming up. And yeah, we get next at least get the design phase done and completed. Just if we have any infrastructure spend federal level, to reiterate Garrett's comments, I think there may have some potential there moving forward as well. But yeah, much thanks to the port staff. Moving forward on our meeting here.
Brad?
Schedule. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, one more quick comment. I just want to say thank you to Eugene for making those comments about his appreciation of the work that we're doing. He's been at our meetings. He's watched us work. He's watched us stumble. He's watched us get up and charge forward again. And I just want to thank him for his kind comments.
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree, Aves. I think keeping us honest and correct is important. So, and he's doing it on his own time, so that is appreciated. Meeting schedule. We're looking at May.
Yeah, we're looking at May, and optimally, there's the 19th or the 26th.
For me, the 26th works best.
Me too.
19th, I will be in Mexico.
26.
Either of those two work for me.
Either one will work for me. This is Aves.
Okay, well, I'd like to propose the 26th.
That works.
Okay.
Can I stress we're meeting at noon? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
We keep our schedule as usual.
So noon through 1:30 on May 26, 2021.
Correct.
Post
And
that on the website today.
Okay.
Maybe, just maybe, we can all be in the same room again.
Yay. That would be nice to see everybody.
Wouldn't it though?
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Take care,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye.
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 Thanks, Brad.
Thank
And
you all.